going on, everybody? Justin here, and in this video I want to start kicking off my sort of top of or best of videos for the books or audiobooks that I finish in the year of 2019, whether that be best of three or top three or top five or what have you. And in this one we're going to be doing my top three philosophy works that were my favorite, works kind of dealing with philosophical topics or actually on philosophy or whatever in the year 2019. This one was definitely kind of interesting because two of them actually did come out in 2019 and one came out at the end of 2018, and I read it at the beginning of 2019, so actually fairly not modern, contemporary, which is actually pretty interesting because a lot of my, especially when we get into like history and stuff, like my favorites always tend to be like these ones that are like a generation or two old and stuff. So I thought that was actually pretty neat. And also in this one, and that's my top three. One is an audiobook. Well, it's an audiobook, but it's like a college. It's one of the great courses or whatever. So it's kind of like a lecture thing. I get like in class or whatever. One is a physical book, and one was the one that I read like on Kindle on NetGalley. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and hopefully with this video, if I can get this out, early middle of January and stuff, it won't be like last year where I was putting out my like best of and top my top videos. I think like in May and June was how slow I was in 2019. So hopefully 2020 I keep up the pace and just kind of knock a bunch of these out, because I do have several genres. This one's gonna be philosophy. I've also got like all my like nature environmental books and stuff, and then a couple different genres in history, fantasy and stuff. I got a lot of like it's hard. I just have a hard time comparing them. I can't. It's hard to do just like my top five books when you read 100 whatever books and they're like all over the place. Some fiction, some nonfiction, lots of different kinds of nonfiction and stuff. So that's why I kind of like to do all the different genres and everything. But yeah, I've kind of rambled on already, so let's just get started with the first one, and we'll go with number three. And this is actually the great course that I listened to, like kind of in audio format, and it is Understanding the Dark Side of Human Nature, and this was taught by Professor Daniel Breyer. This is kind of like a mix of psychology and philosophy, and obviously, as the title suggests, it's all about kind of like the dark stuff, the vices that humans have, whether that's on jealousy, anger, obviously like sin and morality and ethics and all that kind of stuff, but on the the dark spectrum of it, I guess you could say. There were certain what we're thinking of, not like classes, individual lectures, I guess, that were on like things such as why do like people murder, why do people manipulate others, why do we like deceive ourselves and deceive other people, lack of willpower, things like that. So I did cover like a huge just kind of range of pretty much everything that you could possibly see why it's on like all these like serial killer like TV shows. I don't want to say it's all like that morbid and macabre, I guess, but a lot of it kind of starts to kind of go down that rabbit hole when you get to like certain levels of these sort of dark things. But some of the lectures were just why do we think about these like kind of like dark thoughts and stuff. Or for example, if there is like if there is a car accident and it's like gruesome and horrible and stuff, like why are we so fascinated with it that we have to like rubberneck and like watch it and stuff as we're driving by? And why do we like kind of enjoy hearing about like when we have people we don't like, or we have enemies or what have you? Why do we get so much enjoyment out of hearing bad things happening to them, things like that? So yeah, it was kind of an eye opener. But like I said, I think it's always good to kind of read or listen to things that definitely challenge like your own like perceptions and stuff, and make you kind of think and reflect on sort of what's going on in your own head, things like that. I think the only real flaws I had with this one, it was the fact that it was so broad. Some of the topics, I guess the detail could have been a little bit more, but obviously you would have to. These courses are always like in sets of like 12 lectures, so it's either 12 or 24, 36 or whatever, like 99% of the time. This one was like a 24 lecture one, so 12 definitely would have been too short, and 36 might have been hard to kind of elaborate that much on certain things. But like some of the topics I think were a little kind of just like kind of glossing over the surface and stuff, when there's probably a lot more going on and stuff. But yeah, definitely really interesting, kind of like I said, shocking in some ways, just hitting closer to home than I kind of wanted it to. But there is number three. Number two is going to be the physical book, and I read this early in 2019. I was sent this book for review, and I do have like an individual video review of this book. And this one is Brother John, A Monk, a Pilgrim, and the Purpose of Life by August Trek. What's cool about this book too is Glenn Harrington is I think if I remember correctly, if I can remember, I should have watched my review to like remember it. I think he did like the Golfers Hall of Fame or some kind of sports Hall of Fame. He does like fancy like oil paintings and stuff, and he was commissioned to do a bunch of paintings and stuff for this work. So I thought that was kind of neat for that. Now, what this book is all about is originally it started off roughly as an essay where the author sent it in and won like this pretty big prize. I can't remember if it was $10,000 or $100,000 on. I can't remember if the topic exactly was like the meaning of life or something roughly along that, or how to improve your life or something like that. But what the author wrote about was his visit to a local monastery, and this incident always stood with him. Is the obviously at this monastery there are monks, and these monks were like real hardcore monks that will wake up every like 2 hours in the night or whatever to do their like prayers and hymns and stuff, and they work every day of the year. And I think this one was like a Christmas Eve service, I believe, and this was sort of like they're like one day off of the year or something. But it was raining outside, and after like one of the services or something, Brother John was like walking people to their like the guest like accommodations or something along those lines with an umbrella and stuff. For whatever reason, they kind of just like chatted and stuff, and after reflecting on this, that incident just always struck home with the author, just because this literally one like 24-hour cycle this guy has off, this monk has off. He's spending it just walking people in the rain, just because like that's what he wants to do. But anyways, for the philosophical stuff, like I said, you can watch my review a little bit more about. There's kind of the main takeaway that I took from this one was how people, and obviously like ourselves and the reader, should strive to be a little bit more selfless, and that like one act will like improve not only like your own life, but the lives of people around you, obviously by being selfless. And then the idea of like everyone was relatively selfless. Just imagine like how good the world and like your like local community and stuff would be. And I think the one point that really like stood out to me, and like I've like always kind of like remembered, is the reason people don't act selfless actually. It's like the counter argument, and it basically I pretty much agree with it, is we all have roughly like kind of idealized, maybe not perfect isn't the right word, but idealized versions of ourselves that we strive to be, or that we want to be, or that we kind of like aspire, we wish we were to be, whether that's being more selfless, maybe more honest, if we go back to like the dark side of human nature and stuff, things like that. But anyways, what happens along the way is most people become very apathetic or cynical towards the sort of idealized version of themselves, because for one, we know deep down we can never actually really achieve that status of that idealized person that we want to be. So it's just easier to kind of put it to the side and just take the easier route in the dark side or whatever, the more self-centered side, which I think is very prominent in the obviously in this sort of day and age, especially. But yeah, that always just sort of stuck with me, of how like I said, a lot of people just become apathetic, and it's just easier to not be selfless. But if we take a little bit more energy, a little bit more time to become selfless, I think it'll basically go a long way. Kind of like what Brother John was doing, like on his like one day off of walking people in this like rainstorm and stuff, rather than taking like one day off. But anyways, like I said, I'll leave the link to the full review so you can probably elaborate a little bit better, because that review was done like right after I read it, rather than literally like 12 months later. But there's my number two kind of work on a philosophical sort of idea. Maybe more psychological, I guess, but kind of the same vein, so I'm going to include it. All right. And that leaves number one, and this one is definitely a really cool book. It's gonna be one of the contenders for my favorite book of the year for sure. And it is How to Think Like a Roman Emperor: The Stoic Philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. And this is by, I believe, Donald Robertson. I almost had that. And this was a book I received on NetGalley, so I read it on my Kindle. And I don't know, this was just a fantastic work. I mean, like, I love books that kind of blend genres, and this one was like a good mix of history, of like actual like history kind of biography of Marcus Aurelius, as well as sort of a memoir of the author and his kind of path to like learning about Stoicism in philosophy and stuff, which is pretty cool. And then obviously a lot on actual like Stoic philosophy and how like one can apply it in like daily life, things like that. So kind of good blend of philosophy, history, memoir. Just think it worked really well. I love it when books are able to do that. Like I said, the history was really well done. I think it was kind of a really fun, just kind of like overview of Marcus Aurelius, and then obviously with a very philosophical slant. Obviously, if you guys, or if any of you know Marcus Aurelius, he wrote what's come down to us known as the Meditations, or the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, which were his own sort of, it was basically just sort of a journal that he kept to basically be critical of himself, and to reflect on his own kind of thoughts and ideas, as he was like living his life. It wasn't even really meant for publication or as like, a published work or anything like that. So that's why it's come down to us really cool, and it gives us kind of a really cool insight into like the thought processes of Marcus Aurelius. Last time I read it, I didn't do a review, but I think my video is literally just a bunch of quotes I really liked from the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And I don't agree with every single thing Marcus Aurelius wrote, or in Stoic philosophy kind of in general, but like if I had to pick, like a philosophical school of thought, Stoicism is definitely probably the top one. I would like try to strive and sort of adhere to. And I think the book is, like I said, with the blending of genres, it's not like super jarring when he kind of goes back and forth between, like I said, legit like history of the Roman Empire in the 2nd century CE to a kind of like modern like therapy practices and stuff, and like what he went through and stuff, or he tried to like understand and learn about in his own like kind of journey to like make himself feel better and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like it wasn't like reading like 3 books that were kind of like mixed together. It was like its own distinct work. And I have to say the last chapter is like probably one of the most beautiful like chapters like I've read in a long time. Essentially what the author did was, Marcus Aurelius is on his deathbed, and he this could theoretically be something he was like thinking or writing down, as he was really contemplating his death on his deathbed. Memento mori is kind of a big thing in Stoic philosophy, which is sort of it's not thinking about suicide. Like I think some people get that kind of confused, but more of just contemplating your own death, and just essentially coming to terms with it and understanding that it's neither a good thing or a bad thing. It's just like a thing. But anyways, the last chapter is essentially Marcus Aurelius just kind of, I don't want to say rambling, but just sort of reflecting on, why he's come to terms with it and why he accepts death and is not like angry about it or sad about it or anything. And like I said, just a full understanding of, this is the end, but he's okay with it. But I know that totally did not do justice to that last chapter. Like I said, it's just, I don't know, that's one of the best things like I've read in a long time. So, yeah. Anyways, that is my number one book on philosophy, and that one is definitely like, a book on philosophy, I guess, if for the top 3 best philosophy books ever in 2019. So yeah, tell me what you guys thought about any of these 3 books, what you kind of thoughts are on like philosophical works in general, and if you've read a work on philosophy, whether that was 2019 or earlier, or maybe even in 2020. Maybe leave a comment down below to me what you were reading and whether you liked it or not. Definitely on the lookout for more good philosophy books, or more well-written philosophy books. Let's put it that way. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, check out my Instagram, my Twitter, my Etsy shop, my website, all the things. Check them out, all the things. And always remember, whatever you're reading, whether it's a work on philosophy or anything else, read victoriously.